morning to everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I hope everyone is able to hear me wherever they are. So good morning once again. Today for our webinar today, we're dealing with a topic on how to manage pay cuts. This is a very important topic for us today, and I believe for everyone in the world today, because all of us have been affected one way or another by the COVID-19 pandemic. Either our wages have been squashed or our businesses are not doing so well, while the cost of living keeps rising every other day. Then the question becomes, how then can we manage our finances in the midst of the pandemic? To help us this topic this morning is my friend and my fellow colleague, psychologist Richard Wafula. Richard is a counseling psychologist and the CBD regional coordinator for Amani Counseling Health Center and Training Institute. He's an accredited psychologist, trainer, and a life coach with over 12 years of experience, running over 12 years of experience. Richard holds a degree in community psychology from Makerere University, and also holds a high diploma in counseling and psychology. And he's also a trainer of trainers from Amani Counseling Center and Training Institute. Myself, I'll be your host for today's session. My name is Purity Wanjiro. I'm the director for Accurex Leadership and Management Consultants Limited. We are a HR consulting firm. We do a lot of training, just like the one we're about to do today. We also do coaching, mentorship, team building, where whenever we don't have coronavirus around. We also do, I've mentioned coaching and training. Today we have a new department within our company that deals with counseling and psychology. I will be interested to talk to you more about this at the end of the program, but for now, I'll invite Richard to take over the program from here. Karibu sana, Richard.
Thank you so much, Purity. Good morning to all that have logged in. Hoping that all are well wherever you are. Indeed, it's a pleasure this morning to interact with you through this Zoom, to be able to share this very timely topic, how to deal with pay cuts, or how do we manage our pay cuts. And like Purity has said, I think we are that stage, we are that season where perhaps, organization that you're working for, or it could be your business, or you also could be an employer yourself, and you've either decided to, go that direction, or your employer has taken that direction, and therefore a number of things are happening in your life, and therefore you would want to understand in details, how do you handle pay cuts? How do you handle pay cuts? And to help us understand this very timely topic, allow me just to put up my slide that I'll be using even as I share more on this topic this morning. Okay, are you able to see my slide?
Yes, Richard, we are able to see it.
Good. So how to deal with salary reductions, how to deal with pay cuts, how to deal with wage cuts, how to deal with, income, reduction, and especially at this period of the pandemic. And then clearly from my photo there, you can see, a dollar being, cut into two. So this could be you. This image could be representing you this morning, even as we share about this topic. Okay, I have another image for you there. Pay cuts. I mean, just to take us to the mental perspective of what we are about to discuss this morning. But before we look at how to handle this pay cut, perhaps I want to ask, what is a salary? What is a salary? What is an income? What is a salary? So I'm defining a salary as a fixed amount of money or compensation paid to an employee by an employer in return for work performed. A salary is commonly paid in fixed intervals. For example, monthly payments, 1/12 of the annual salary. I mean, common practice in our country is where we get our salaries at the end of the month. And of course, as you get to employment, you have an expectation. You always have an expectation because then you negotiate from the beginning before even you sign your acceptance letter that this is what I expect and this is what the employer is telling you is going to offer. And as you go into that job, already you have a plan. I will stay here in a house of this X amount of rent, or I will buy a house, or I'll take a mortgage, or I'll take a loan, or I'll take my children, for those that have children, to this X, type of school, or I'll buy a car. I mean, we all have expectations and we all have plans. To a significant extent, and allow me to talk to employees, or rather, yes, employees at this juncture, is that as you get into that employment, you already see your life plan. You already know this is where I'm heading with this job. Many a times we look for other jobs because then we are looking for salary increments, because then our expenditures, our budgets keep growing, our expectations keep growing, and therefore that salary becomes very, very important. And so for those that are salaried, at the end of 30 days, you have an expectation that I'll get this money and this is how I'm going to spend this money. Now, and of course, you have been, going through about it for quite a period of time, for those that have been employed for a period of time, or even for those that are just newly employed. Now, here comes a pandemic, and all of a sudden, your employer is faced with very tough options. Remember, salaries have a way of motivating an employee. I don't know for you, but for me, it has a way of motivating me. And that is perhaps one of the reasons that explains why we seek for higher salaries. We seek for better pays, because then the higher the amount, it is assumed or it is perceived. Let me use those words carefully. It is perceived that the higher the amount of money, the more motivated the staff. There's a reason to it, and we can go into it and we can, discuss further, at broader length what that means. But here comes a situation, here comes a season where all of a sudden an employer is faced with a very tough option, where you either have to take an unpaid leave or you either have to take, a salary cut. I don't know which one would work for you, those listening to me. I don't know which will be a better option for you, either being sent on an unpaid leave or either taking a pay cut. I don't know. We are all different. Our needs, I started by saying, we all have different needs. We always have different plans, expectations. Our expectations are very differently. So that even when we are working in the same organization, my expectation may not be my colleague's expectation. My needs, my priorities may not be the other person's priority. And therefore, these salaries, even as we're talking about them today, or these pay cuts, even as we're talking about them today, has affected us differently. It is important to be aware that as we're talking about this pay cut, not everyone is affected negatively, because then salaries mean different things to all of us. We all have a different meaning. If I was to ask all those that have logged in my presentation this morning, what does a salary mean to you? I'm sure I'll get very diverse answers to that. And yes, that is the truth, that salaries mean different things to us, depending on the season of life or depending on where we are at, what is our need and what we do, then we can really look at it in that perspective. However, assuming the constant that you have been receiving whatever you've been receiving for the period that you have been receiving it, and now comes a time, of course, occasioned by these economic hard times as a result of the pandemic that we're experiencing globally. And here you're faced with a decision to take that pay cut. What will that mean for you? Allow me to just put up some of the reflective statements that we will want to even discuss, at length. And perhaps even as we share these reflective questions, it is important to look at where am I at as an individual regarding this issue of the pay cut. I've already said, what would be a better option for you? Would you rather be sent home on an unpaid leave, or would you rather pay that pay cut? And if you're taking the option of the pay cut, then how are you going to manage the pay cut? And so one of the questions that I want us to reflect on this morning is, what is the importance of a salary to you? What does a salary mean to you? What does it mean to you? Different people at different seasons of life with different needs, with different expectations. A salary will mean completely something different. Perhaps even as we think about what will a salary mean to me, attach it to the question, what would you not do without a salary? What would you not do without a salary? Have you asked yourself that question? Perhaps I'm posing it to you this morning to reflect on it. So what importance is it, a salary to me? What would you not do without a salary? The other important questions to ask ourselves as we ponder about this very hard economic times is, have you ever had a pay cut? I don't know how many of us listening to me this morning have ever been there, have ever had the pay cuts. How did you deal with them? What are some of the strategies that you employed to deal with these pay cuts? How would you manage a pay cut with all the things you would want to do with a salary? And I'm sure these are just a few of the many questions that could be lingering in our mind, that could be going through in our minds, even as we are either faced with the possibility of having a pay cut, or already we're in that particular situation. Important to note, dear members who have logged in this morning, is that others, it will be a very challenging period. It will be a very difficult period in terms of adjusting, not even adjusting, but even in terms of accepting that this is happening. It's going to be a total shift of what has been happening in your life. Importantly is to be aware that it's going also to cause a lot of anxiety, some psychological reaction, other people as a result of this pay cut. They're going to lose a relationship, because then some of the relationships are pegged on the amount of income that you have been getting over a given period of time. And here comes, the harsh reality of a reduced income. Others are going to lose friends. Others are going to lose friends because then you cannot sustain the lifestyle that you're used to, and especially with your friends. To some of us, salary means a lot because then it is what you use to actually be able to sustain your social life. And here comes a pay cut. And therefore, it means you have to reduce on some of the expenditures. And as you reduce on some of those expenditures, then you're also losing out on social capital, because then you're not able to entertain those friends who you're used to entertain before, and there becomes a problem. And so as we journey through this subject this morning, it's important to reflect and ask ourselves these four very critical questions. Perhaps there will be other questions that, I'll allow you at some point to throw in. What are some of the things that could be going through? But importantly, from the psychological perspective, just to bring to your awareness that as you go through this period, it's important to, explore further on these questions, but also to be aware, what are some of the psychological impact as a result of this thing? How is it going to affect your work? Already I've said that, to some of us, and perhaps to a good number, is that our motivation, our performance is pegged on what we receive at the end of the month. And here comes a pay cut. will it affect your work attitude? Will it affect your work output? Important to also just to be aware and ask yourself, where is this going to take me? Let's look at some of the questions lingering during these pay cuts. And it's okay to ask these questions. It is okay to ask this question. Perhaps some of us who have been already notified by your employers that there's going to be a pay cut, already it has been effected. You could be asking yourself, and it's okay even to ask your employer, is this temporal, permanent? Is this temporal, permanent? I don't know who knows when this corona thing is going to come to an end. Just recently, I was reading an article from the World Health Organization. They're saying it seems this corona is here for us, to stay. It's here to stay. So then, even as they're asking this question, is this temporary? Is this permanent? Important to even connect with what is happening in this situation. But it's okay to ask that question. It is okay. It is fine to ask that question. Perhaps another question lingering during this period is, will your workload decrease or remain the same? I've already asked that question. Will your workload decrease or remain that same? Now, here are two scenarios. If your workload decreases, is it to your advantage or to your disadvantage? Will it cause more, counter measure from your employer, perhaps? Will your employer now start to see you're not performing and therefore take another action of allowing you to go or laying you off? Very important area to consider as well. What are the company's plans on turning things around? I'm sure some of us are asking, okay. I had a client just the other day and he was telling me, does it mean my company didn't see this coming? But who saw this coming? But you're right, as a human being, whenever you're faced with certain changes, this is a change and perhaps represents or signifies a major change in your life. And therefore, it is okay to be paranoid. It is okay to be suspicious of even those who are taking this decision. Others, perhaps in this particular period, will be asked, even thinking or imagining that, this decision is against them. It is, others will look at it as a malicious decision. Others will look at it as an unfair decision. I want to tell you this morning that from the psychological perspective, it is okay to even have those imaginations, to even feel that someone is taking advantage of you or somebody is just, betraying you because then you're not doing this or that. But at the end of the day, you need clarity. You need clarity. For you to deal with pay cut or income reduction, you need clarity. And that is why these questions are important for you to really ponder, for you to really think about, so that then you get the clarity that will help you be able to manage with this situation very well. Remember, it's a change, and I've already said it's a significant change. And therefore, importantly, is for you to be able to know how, to what length are you prepared to deal with this change? Could there be a retroactive reimbursement? Very useful question at this particular point. So somebody's telling you, okay, now we will give you pay cuts because then we're not doing well. Then you also maybe will be, struggling with that thought. Okay, so will it come a time where whatever has been deducted from me will be actually reimbursed, and have a boom altogether? Other organization will do that. Others may not, depending again on where you are at and what you are doing. And so it is okay to have these questions. It is okay. It is fine to think through or to go through this question, and especially this timing point where it is very, very, difficult to some of us to be able to be in that space where you have to be forced to take a salary cut. Now, what are the categories of salaried employees? Let's look at, three major types of, salaried people. Number one, there are those who can continue to pay for their expenses, including equated monthly installments on loans if they have loans, and invest regularly. I did start my presentation by saying we are so different. and whatever the pay cut situation that we are faced with, already we are being, or rather already we are in it, we will be able to look at it very, very different perspective. Okay? There are those who can manage their expenses, as a result of the pay cut, but are likely to fall short of money to continue investing. So it means a part of you is, comes to a halt, So even as we're looking at these three categories, I'm asking you, where do you fall? In what type of employee are you? Then, of course, the third level is salary earners who may struggle to manage their expenses. As soon as you have been asked to take a pay cut or it has been effected, then it becomes so difficult for you to be able to continue managing your expenses, including paying your own utility bills, So these are three types of salaried employees. The question is, what type of unsalaried employee, if you are an employee here, are you this particular morning? What type of an employee are you this particular morning? And therefore, the question should be, connecting to just what we're looking at, if I'm that, category one, you may not be really affected because then you're able to pay for your expenses, you're able to pay for your loans if you have your loans, you're able to continue investing. But the problem comes if you're a type 2 or a type 3. If you're this kind of a person who can manage your expenses, but you're likely to fall short of money at some point, More worse is if you are a type 3, where you're a salary earner who may struggle to manage your expenses, So therefore, the main question after looking at this will be, how can I manage an income reduction? How can I manage a pay cut? What options do I have? What solutions do I have? It is interesting that much of the solutions at this particular time, you have them. You have them. Even as I'm going to share with you part of my research about how to manage this, it's important to know that as an individual, you have what it takes to be able to see solutions beyond this period. And so let's run through, how can I survive or deal with salary reduction? How can I survive or deal with salary reduction? And here are some of the tried and tested strategies we have put together for you to effectively manage your finances, during pay cuts. One, create a budget. I don't know whether those listening to me operate with a budget or have a budget. And I'm saying that the essence of creating a budget is for you to track every bit of what you spend during this month or during this period, so that you still have something to save. Importantly, even as your income keeps, or rather, even as your income reduces, it's important to be able to track your expenses and be able to see whether you can be able to save. Remember, you need this income at a later stage. And it will be very important for you to be able to, come back to normalcy, if you have to put it that way. So to create a budget, you have to calculate the expenses you make for the month or for the period and set saving goals. But your focus should be on your basic needs. So as you're doing your budget, I know, to those who are operating with the budget, this is not a new thing. Even as I'm talking about a budget, perhaps you even know how to make a very, very good budget for yourself. So one of the ways is to still keep to a budget. Now, look at what works for you now. What can you not do without? There are expenses at this particular time that are not mandatory, that are not important in as much as you have been used to them. I think one of the ways to survive a pay cut or income reduction is to be able to look at what are those expenses that at this particular time I can be able to do without. But most importantly is, are you able to track the expenses? Are you able to track your money? That will be very important. It will be a game changer, because then it will help you plan well. It will help you plan well. It will help you live within your means. It will help you be able to manage the income reduction. And as a result, what will it be doing to you? It will help you not get overwhelmed emotionally. I'm just imagining your finance, and because it has been reduced, then all of a sudden there's a lot of things that are supposed to be done, which are very essential, which are very important, and you have no money. And you have no money. In fact, one of the strategies that I'll be talking about later is, I'm sure when you get to that position where you feel overwhelmed, others will be tempted to go for loans. Loans at this particular time may not be very ideal, because then you don't know for how long will this situation last. How long will this pay cut be able to be effected? And therefore, it is important to track your income, however reduced it will be at this particular time, and be able to set your priorities. What is it for me that is important at this particular stage? What can I do without? What can I do with that is very, very important at this particular stage? And so, still under that same point, remove unnecessary expenses. One of the best ways to do that is to prioritize your needs over your wants. Very, very important. Prioritize your needs over your wants. How? Avoid retail therapy and shopping online. Some of us were used to, when you go to Jumia, when you see something advertised, and there you are. Perhaps with pay reduction, income reduction, it is time to avoid that retail therapy and shopping online. Avoid making calls for too long, because then it interferes with your ability to pay for your long calls. I mean, it's not harm, it's not bad to make those calls, but are they so necessary, and to what advantage, or to what values do they add at this particular time? Avoid rushing to buy material things such as clothes, shoes, bags, etc. It is okay if you can afford. I've already talked about the 3 categories of salaried employees: those that they will continue with their normal lifestyle, regardless of the period that they're going to get into the salary reduction; those that at some point income will be a struggle; and those that completely will struggle as a result of the pay cut. And so, checking on where you are and the type of salaried employee you are, then perhaps my point number 3 will make a lot of sense, if you know that avoiding buying clothes, shoes, bags at this particular time will be very helpful for you to be able to manage the little or the much that you have to be able to manage at this particular point of the pay cut or income reduction. Cancel streaming services and any other services that qualify as wants for now. We all would wish, and I'm sure even as you listen to me, you are hopeful. Personally, I'm hopeful that this situation is going to change. I'm hopeful that this situation, at some point, it will come to an end. And so it's a matter of time. And so it's just to be disciplined in terms of economic spending, in terms of financial spending, to be able to actually manage this particular scenario of the pay cut. All right, what is the other strategy? Pay the best prices for staff or goods. Ensure that you're paying the lowest prices for products and services this period. You can look out for discounts and cheaper alternatives. Okay? I'm aware and I'm informed that there are those of us who just get into shopping malls or shopping places, and really prices don't really bother. I mean, they were not an issue. I mean, just pick an item, and because you have that money. Because you had that money. But here, all of a sudden, there is an income reduction or there's a pay reduction. Now, how do you survive? How do you survive? Go for the lowest products, go for what you can afford easily. I've already said set a priority. It's not time for wants, but perhaps time for needs. And so, importantly, is for you to be able to look at where can I get discounts, or where can I get a commodity that perhaps costed me 1,000 shillings, but I can get to where it will cost me 800 shillings. That 200 shillings you're saving is so important to help you survive at this particular time in point. So very important to pay the best prices for whatever you're looking for outside in the market. What will be the other strategy? Reassess your long and short-term goals. Reassess your long and short-term goals. And I'm saying that everyone has different financial goals. One person may want to save enough money so they can retire from the workforce and just stay home and sleep all day. Another individual may want to burn through any income he or she receives and work until they're old and gray. Priorities, priorities. Now that your financial picture looks slightly different with less income, it will be a prudent step to reassess your financial aims, long-term and short-term. Indeed, your short-term goal right now is survival, right? Your short-term goal is survival. How do I survive beyond this pay cut, beyond this corona, beyond this pandemic time, beyond this harsh economic season? But it won't last forever. So maybe it's time to be more ambitious with your future. And how? Remember to save for your future as well. Remember to save for your future. Very, very important. Health is wealth. I like this point. It is time to check on our health. It is time to be cautious. It is time to really be careful. It is time to really do everything to be able to be healthy, because then we know that much of our income goes into treating us whenever we are unwell. And if you want to save, then you also have to take good care of your health, especially during this time. So you have to be careful with your health so that you don't fall sick at this particular period. Otherwise, I'm imagining already your finances are squeezed, and then comes a health challenge. And some of these health challenges, of course, there are those that are beyond us, clearly. There are those conditions that are beyond us, but there are those other conditions as a result of our lifestyle, or as a result of our habits, or as a result of our behaviors we can avoid. So also look at what kind of habits, what kind of behaviors are you engaging at this particular point. Are they healthy risk? Are they pre-exposing you to a health challenge? If there are behaviors that clearly will expose you to a health challenge, and especially at this period where you are already constrained financially as a result of income reduction, then I think it is time to reconsider. It is time to reconsider those behaviors. If there are those behaviors that perhaps you are addicted and you cannot be able to deal with it at your own level, then reach out. Reach out for help. Reach out so that you can be able to deal with that behavior. Otherwise, much of our health is sometimes pegged on our behaviors. Our behaviors determine our health to a greater extent. So it is important to watch on what our habits, what our behaviors at this particular point. What can I do? What can I not do in terms of my behaviors that will be able to guarantee me good health, so that even as I'm struggling with this income reduction, then I'm assured that I'm healthy and I can be able to manage whatever little that I have at this particular point. Don't go into debt. Don't go into debt. That's another strategy. No matter how many times you convince yourself that things will get better and you'll earn more money than ever before in future, you should never take on more debt that you have to. Already, perhaps some of us already have debts, have loans. Why would you want to add more trouble? Simply because then you want to furnish a lifestyle? Simply because you want to finance a lifestyle? It is okay to take a step back. After all, we have said it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. And how you manage this period is very, very critical. Very, very critical towards how it's going to be after this period. And so if you can avoid debt, avoid it. If you can avoid debt at this particular time, avoid it. Life can be tough. And it certainly is going to be a bit harder. And that's the reality. As we're talking about the pay cut, that's the reality. But going into debt won't work for you. It won't work for you because you may not be able to recover from that debt. And that is why it's not advisable at this particular time to incur more debt. And especially if you're already in one, if you can avoid completely. And of course, with credit cards interest, the way it is, piling onto your Visa or MasterCard or even line of credit will cripple you for years to come. And so it is advisable that as you are facing a pay cut or as you're going already through a pay cut, then getting into debt at this particular point may not be a very good option for you. What is the other strategy, even as we run down, is that never miss bill payments, and especially those that are critical, especially those that are important, So one of the quickest ways to get into trouble is to miss to pay your bills. Unless you have negotiated a different payment plan that eliminates interest, then you shouldn't decide to skip your water, internet, or credit card bill per month. However, a point to note, you can renegotiate so that if you have an income reduction, reach out. If it's a credit card, and I be able to pay less of what I was paying, if it is other thing that you can, renegotiate, to actually eliminate interest at this particular time, then it is important for you to do that. And I think our banks have really done well to listen to our need at this particular time, and especially in terms of renegotiating our loans as well. And I'm saying otherwise, late fees, interest, and other penalties will accrue, leaving you in a worse situation. I'm imagining if you accrue, a rent that you could be able to even manage to pay in installments, even though you're not paying in full, in the name of there's a pandemic, in the name that I've had a pay cut. What if after this, you have accrued perhaps 200, 300, whatever amount of money, then it's going to be very, very difficult for you to be able to realize or come back to normalcy. And therefore, my brothers and sisters, this morning, these are some of the ways that you can be able to manage. These are some of the ways that you can be able to cope with the possibility or already with the reality of the pay cut. And it's important to be aware. If it is overwhelming you, and I'm talking from the psychological perspective, if it is overwhelming you, then reach out. Reach out and just talk about how you're feeling, how you're thinking, how you're behaving, so then you can be helped to see possibilities. At this particular point, I'm sure it comes with a lot of shock as a feeling. It comes with a lot of denial as a way of reacting. It comes with a lot of anger as a feeling in terms of reacting to this, because there is a change. It comes with a lot of bargaining. Some of you are even asking your employers, what can I do for you so that you don't cut my salary? What can I do more, sir? What can I do? You become so nice to those who are making this decision. It may not change much. To some of us, depression will sink in, because then, of course, as a result of change that is happening in your life. So it's important to be aware, how is this affecting you at this particular time? Some of us already, faced with the possibility of this or the reality of this, have accepted, and they are readjusting. Another key strategy is readjusting. Being able to be flexible, being able to find new ways of actually managing or meeting your obligations without really constraining, yourself financially and, of course, emotionally. We already know that conflict sometimes result, and especially in families, as a result of finances. Be open. If your employer has declared a pay cut, be open. If you are in a relationship, you're in marriage, go and discuss about it. I know there are people who may not want to disclose that, my salary has been reduced, with the fear of what will my partner say? What will he or she think of me? Is it your fault? were you in control in the first place? You know, it's perhaps a decision that you're not in control of. And therefore, to avoid some of the conflicts that are going to arise as a result of you not meeting your obligations, it is important to just be open with people around you who matter and just tell them that even your children, for those that have children, I mean, sit with them and tell them that, for this period, some of the privileges that, have been, some of the things that you've been enjoying may not be enjoyed at this particular period because, I'm going through a pay cut, and as a result, it has affected a number of our priorities, and this is our priority. Share as much as you can. Learn as much as you can with people around you. Otherwise, then you're facing a possibility of not just a pay cut, but also other problems. As your employer declares a pay cut, you're faced with a marital conflict on the other side, because then you cannot be able to manage. Be understanding to those that are also going through this particular situation, and how can you be able to, be of support, or how can they support you? Share, talk to them. How would you want to be supported? How would you want to support those who are going through this pay cut at this particular period? It's not a very easy period. It's not a very good thing. You have to put it that way. It's not a very, very good thing. But like I said in the beginning, would you rather have gone for an unpaid leave or a pay cut? Which is a better, plan for you at this particular time? But even as you ponder that, we've already gone through this. What other strategies do you have to be able to manage the possibility of, going into pay cut? And therefore, allow me to end my presentation at that point and allow us to ask any questions or clarification or addition. Perhaps some of us have strategies that I've not talked about here that could be working very well, that other people can share or tap and also utilize the same to be able to deal with this situation. So thank you very much. I now open the forum, Purity, for any question, for any clarification or any addition.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard. We've learned a lot from you. I believe we are coming out of this better people, having to manage the little money we have. From the top, when we were starting, we asked the question, which one would you prefer, unpaid leave or a pay cut? And from the chat box, there's almost a 50-50% chance. One group of people prefer a pay cut, while the other group of people prefer unpaid leave. I'll just read a few comments from that particular point. The first one was from Pamela. Okay, unpaid leave on a rational basis monthly, or at least best split of the month amongst the departmental staff. 15-15. I'm not so sure what she meant by that. Caroline, I would prefer unpaid leave. That's interesting to read. Mulumbi, a pay cut, unpaid leave means you're getting zero for the duration of the leave. While pay cuts, you get some percentage of your salary. Good reasoning there. Mercy, I'll prefer something to nothing at all. So pay cut it is. All right. Miriam, I think that will be the final comment on that particular topic. I think a pay cut, as one can meet basic needs, it will mean lifestyle adjustment has to be made. Pay cut is better than nothing. Then again, it depends whether the organization can afford to pay at all. Okay, thank you so much. I'll move to the questions. I've seen several questions coming in. Unpaid leave is not only the days, and I think this was a comment from Eunice. She said unpaid leave is only for the days not earned. This means that its impact may not be so huge compared to a salary cut. Good reasoning there. We have Ahmed. I think this is a question. Richard, you can take this up. The pay cut should it have a duration or timeline? By taking extra responsibility, should the status quo remain? Any update on the government support to cushion employers during this period? Let's start from there.
So should it have a duration?
Or a timeline?
Let me go back to one of the questions that I'd posed there. Okay. What are the company's plans on overturning things around? I think that question is also related to what that gentleman is asking.
Yes.
I mean, this depends. Pay cuts or income reduction is dependent on what has caused it. So different organizations make this decision based on their financial projections. Now, depending on the result of their financial projection, there are those organizations that would actually even be able to have a timeline and say in the next 6 months or 1 year, we'll be able to have our staffs on pay cut, after which we know we can be able to recover. There are other organizations, depending on their financial result or what has informed the decision to take the pay cut, they may not be in a position to really have a timeline. So I want to answer by saying that it depends with different organizations and what has really informed that decision. Remember, organizations make decisions based on a number of things. And at this particular time, it could be that you are a production company and whatever you're producing is not going in the market. It's not being bought in the market. And so as a result of this pandemic, so you may not tell up to when. You may not tell up to when. But like I've said, there are organizations that depending on also where they are at, and they're able to project, then they can even tell you, we are giving you pay cut for 3 months, after which we can be able to pay you in lump sum of the 3 months. Others will say, we are not able, we shall pick up from where we resume and be able to have your pay back to normal without actually reimbursing you. So different organizations, different policies, but of course, the main thing is what informs that decision in the first place.
Okay, moving on. I don't know if we have any information on government support to push on employers. Any comment there, Richard?
Of course, the government has tried to put general, it has been stipulating. In fact, if you listen to, the president, his ministers, they have actually been trying to put some, regulations. They've been trying to put some strategies to be able to cushion employers. That may not be enough. However, to some extent, other organizations are benefiting from those strategies that have already been put with the government. And so, yes, the government is trying to be able to cushion, employees around. Of course, there was a bill. I don't know whether it was already tabled in the Senate, where it was talking about, the employers are not supposed to actually, lay off their staff or, reduce their pay. All those strategies are being worked out with the government. It depends on also how the organization has strategically placed itself to be able to benefit from some of the measures that are being put in place by the government.
Okay, we have one more question from Magdalene. How much notice should you give staff, or how soon should you communicate the intention of issuing the pay cuts?
It goes down to your HR policy. There are those that have given, a month's notice. There are those that have given 2 weeks' notice. There are those that, have just woken up and, declared a pay cut. So it also goes down to what are some of the HR policies in your organizations that inform such decisions, and how are such decisions communicated. Just like when an employee is laid off or there's a disciplinary issue, what are some of the laid down processes or regulations that pertains a disciplinary issue, for example? Or if you have to be laid off, what are some of the things that are supposed to be put in place? So it all goes down to your HR practices or policies in the organization that will determine the notice period given for pay cut.
All right, thank you, Richard. We have another. We asked a question almost at the beginning of this presentation, where we asked, "Do you have a budget?" From the feedback that I got, it seems almost 50% of people have a budget. So I think we'll encourage the other group that doesn't have budgets to at least start and see how best they can start developing their own personal budgets. From ACE, I repeat on the categories of salaried persons. I think this was among your first slides when you were starting out. The 3 categories, I think that is what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, I know also a few of us are asking if it's possible to get this presentation. Yes, it is. Just make sure you leave us behind with your email address. We have a question from Julius. Some of the providers are not willing to renegotiate the payment terms of loans or credits offered. What could be other options?
Come again, Purity?
This question is from Julius. He's asking, some of the providers are not willing to renegotiate the payment terms of loans or credits offered. What could be other options?
Wow, sadly so that, some of the organizations are not able to, explore that option, I really will not, be able to advise on what will be the other options, because then that is the primary, contract between that person and, the lender, and so if that, organization that actually is lending is not able to renegotiate, then it becomes very difficult for this person. And so I may not really be able to give what will be the other alternative source, but still encourage, that person or other people who are in that category to still reach out, to that said organization and be able to see how else will this be renegotiated. I mean, the government has pleaded with financial institutions, and others are complying. I will not really know why a few will not comply to the same. But it's quite unfortunate if that is happening to any other organization outside there.
Okay, we have one more question from Ahmed. He's asking, on the finances, will it be wise for one to apply for a loan for preparation for their survival?
That's an interesting question. What exactly does it mean for preparation for survival? When you borrow money, it means that you are either you're investing where it can give you a return to be able to repay that amount of money.
Yes.
If you're not able to have income to repay that amount of money, you're just adding a lot of baggage to you. You're just adding a lot of, problems on yourself. But what would you be doing to prepare to survive? Is it business? And have you researched on the business, especially this particular period? Because then if you want to put up a business at this particular point, it is important to research on it and see, will it survive this pandemic period? Otherwise, then you put that money into whatever you think will survive, and there you go. So just like I said, it's not time to go into debt unless it is so necessary. It is well calculated. It is well informed. Otherwise, then it becomes unnecessary evil, if I have to put it that way, to go for a date at this particular time.
All right. Thank you, Richard. One final question from Sabina. What happens if an employee declines to get both the pay cut or unpaid leave, citing current financial burdens? What is the next step with such an employee?
I think maybe let's look at it from the other side first. What are the options for the employer if you have such an employee?
Yes.
Because you have declared a pay cut and perhaps you have explained these are the reasons why we're declaring pay cuts, and others have taken, a few have not. And so what options, what options does an employer? I want to look at it from that other perspective. Now, one of the other options that an employer will have is perhaps to terminate the contract with this employee. Does it stand well with the employee who has refused to take the pay cut being terminated? Because then the employer will have no option. I'm going through a very difficult financial situation that all of us can be able to see. And I'm declaring a pay cut based on the financial income that the organization is getting. And it's not just out of malice or any other thing. I've explained that this is the reason why I'm declaring this pay cut. And an employee refuses to take that pay cut. I have no option. I have no option. But at that time, perhaps we shall be guided by, our contractual terms. So again, it goes down to whoever is making that decision, what has informed this particular person not to take that pay cut or that unpaid leave. Simple as that.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard. I think we come to the end of this particular session. Thank you, everyone who was able to join us this morning. I'll just read a few comments from the population. One is from Sabina. Thank you for the session. Yes, you can get the presentation. If you leave us with your email address, it was very helpful. We have another comment from Magdalene. Better half a loaf is better than none. Pay cut for me. I think a lot of us are leaning on the side of pay cut, and it's because of the uncertainty that it comes with it. Let me see if I'm able to get another comment from the population. Yes, from Evelyn. Wow, such an eye-opening discussion. Thank you, Purity. Thank you, Evelyn, as well. Thank you so much for all of us who are able to tune in today. We look forward to more webinars in the coming weeks. We have one webinar this coming weekend with Richard Wafula as well, where we'll be tackling the topic of parenting during the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you have children and they're eating your head out, it's high time you come and join Richard and myself as we discuss this topic at length. Other than that, here are our contacts. Make sure you drop us an email at info@accurex.co.ke or give us a call on WhatsApp or just a normal call. Also follow us on social media, see what else we are able to come up with during this period of time. Other than that, a lot of thanks. I hope all of us are keeping safe wherever we are. We are washing our hands, keeping distance, wearing masks. This is our new norm, but I believe it's keeping us more safer than anything else. Until next time, God bless you. See you next time.